Hello everybody, this is RPGmodsFan. In this walkthrough video, I will be reviewing the 7th adventure in the Candlekeep Mysteries anthology book, which was published by Wizards of the Coast in January of 2021. This 5th edition D&D Adventure is titled Book of Cylinders. It was written by Graeme Barber. The adventure is meant for 6th-level players. Graeme said that Wizards of the Coast made a lot of changes to his original work. He said that Wizards removed or slimmed down much of the adventure's lore and backstory, along with much editing and modification to his original work. He stated that he expected changes to be made, but the extent to which the changes were made displeased him. The adventure starts with the player characters in Candlekeep. One of the Candlekeep's librarians, also known as the Avowed, approaches the party in hopes of getting them to accept a quest on behalf of Candlekeep. The Avowed's name is Pelk. She is a female copper dragonborn. She informs the party that most of Candlekeep's seafood comes from a community of Gripply, whose settlement is located on the shores of the Sword Coast, northwest of Candlekeep. For the past few weeks, practically all seafood shipments from them have ceased. In this adventure, the player characters are tasked with finding out what has happened to the settlement of Gripply.
Hello, my name is Alrond. I am the former Keeper of Tomes. Some time ago, the task of governing Candlekeep has been turned over to the Archmage Janusi. Anyway, my assistant, RPGmodsFan, will be discussing the adventure itself, and his video will contain spoilers. Unless you are a dungeon master who will be running this adventure for their players, or are a player who already played through this adventure and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video.
Like most of the adventures in Candlekeep Mysteries, the Book of Cylinders did not include an adventure overview or summary. Candlekeep Mysteries should have had adventure overviews and summaries for each of its adventures. The synopsis of the adventure would be as follows. 3 engraved cylinders contained within a book tell a gripping tale when rolled across wet clay. The tale is not a telling of past events, but actually is a prophecy. The players then set off to help a Gripply village that came under attack by evil Yuan-Ti. Gripply are frog-like folk who are distantly related to the Bullywugs. This adventure updates them for 5th edition D&D. Shipments of seafood to Candlekeep from a northern Gripply village in Cloakwood has practically been cut off. The group of adventurers are hired by the Avowed to determine what has befallen the Gripply village and to aid the Gripply village. The adventurers discover that the Gripply are caught in the crossfire between 2 groups of Yuan-Ti, a goodly faction worshipping a deity they call the Scaled Mother, and a group of Set worshippers who are hunting them down. An interview with Graeme Barber is available in the 36th issue of Dragon Plus Virtual Magazine. Graeme works as a professional diver, but has also done archaeological work. In the interview, he strongly hints to run the adventure like an Indiana Jones adventure. I believe many of you can already guess who the evil Yuan-Ti are supposed to represent. I will now go over the timeline of events for the adventure. Centuries ago, a temple dedicated to a sea deity called the Scaled Mother gets buried. This temple is located near the current location of the Gripply village. 15 years ago, explorers recovered the Book of Cylinders along with other works from a ruined keep in Tetir. The so-called book describes a conflict between Gripply and an invading force of Yuan-Ti. A few months ago, Yuan-Ti worshippers of the Scaled Mother arrive at the Gripply village. They ask Pond Mother, who was the leader of the Gripply village, for permission to excavate the Scaled Mother temple. They are granted permission by the Pond Mother to do so. Several weeks ago, another group of Yuan-Ti arrives, who are hunting down the first group of Yuan-Ti. These Yuan-Ti are worshippers of an evil snake deity known as Set. They then raided the Gripply village and captured most of the first group of Yuan-Ti. Pond Mother and many of her villagers managed to flee to a trading post that is 5 miles or 8 kilometers south of the Gripply village. The Gripply village was Candlekeep's main source of seafood. For the past few weeks, seafood shipments to Candlekeep have been practically cut off. The librarians at Candlekeep, who are known as the Avowed, are now worried about what happened to the Gripply. The adventure starts with the player characters in Candlekeep. Pelk, an avowed female copper dragonborn, approaches the adventurers. She informs them that seafood shipments to Candlekeep have been cut off, and she says that Candlekeep wants to hire them to find out what happened to the Gripply village. She says that Captain Mitor Hans, a male half-orc, is willing to sail them to the trading post that lies 5 miles south of the Gripply village. When the player characters arrive at the trading post, they will see that it is full of Gripply refugees. Feeding the refugees has caused the halt of all exported seafood. Most Gripply do not know Common. Those that do have a difficult time speaking it, due to the anatomy of their mouths and throats. The adventurers then have an audience with Pond Mother. She prefers to speak Primordial, and Captain Mitor Hans will offer to translate and be an interpreter. The Pond Mother will then tell about the Yuan-Ti Scaled Mother worshippers and about the raid by the Set worshipping Yuan-Ti. The player characters then travel to and investigate the Gripply village. Within the village, the adventurers can encounter Gripply who have remained behind, as well as patrol squads of the Yuan-Ti Set cult. The Set worshipping Yuan-Ti are continuing to excavate the temple of the Scaled Mother. They are using both the captured Scaled Mother worshipping Yuan-Ti and the surviving and captured Gripply to do the work. At the temple, the player characters have the final confrontation with the Yuan-Ti Set cult. I will now be going into a little bit more detail on the adventure's cast of characters, which include NPCs and the adventure's villains. Pelk is one of Candlekeep's Avowed. She's a female copper dragonborn and is the adventure's quest giver. She will inform the adventurers that Candlekeep's seafood comes mainly from a northern community of Gripply. She adds that this source of seafood has been cut off, and wants the adventurers to go there and investigate. The Avowed are willing to pay each character 500 gold pieces once the threat to the Gripply village has been neutralized. Assuming the characters agree to undertake the quest, Pelk then hands them the Book of Cylinders. The Book of Cylinders is not a book per se, but a box whose hinged top opens like a book's cover. Inside is a bag of dry clay and 3 intricate and 3 intricately carved hollow cylinders. The carvings are mirror-imaged dwarvish script. In order to see what is written on the cylinders, the player characters are supposed to roll the cylinders onto wet clay. The writing on these cylinders convey that the Gripply became skilled at harvesting giant crabs. It also conveys that serpent creatures invaded and destroyed most of the Gripply village. The cylinders are not conveying history, but instead they are conveying a prophecy that has now come true. The original author, Graeme Barber, wanted the player characters just to receive the cylinders. It was up to them to deduce. It was up to them to deduce. They would need some wet clay to figure out what was written on the cylinders. Pelk will advise the adventurers to seek out Captain Meter Hans, who is in Candlekeep and can sail the adventurers to a trading post that lies near the invaded Gripply village. Captain Meter Hans is a male half-orc. His ship is called the Dog Ear. He will sail the player characters to the trading post where Pondmother and her Gripply refugees are. Meter and his crew are non-combatants and will not accompany the player characters into the Gripply village itself. Pondmother is an aged female Gripply and is their leader. When the hostile Yuan-Ti invaded her village, most of the Gripply were either captured or slaughtered. Pondmother and many of her villagers were able to escape to a nearby trading post. Although she understands the common tongue, due to the anatomy of her mouth and throat, she prefers to speak Primordial. Captain Meter Hans can speak Primordial and will offer to be an interpreter between the player characters and the Gripply. She informs the adventurers that a small band of Yuan-Ti arrived in the area over a month ago. They claim to be followers of a benevolent deity called the Scaled Mother. In the near outskirts of the Gripply village was a buried temple dedicated to the Scaled Mother. They asked for Pondmother's permission to excavate and restore the temple, which she granted. Several weeks ago, a second and much larger group of Yuan-Ti arrived. Unlike the earlier friendly ones, these Yuan-Ti were hostile and attacked the village. Pondmother asks the adventurers for help and tells them that the Yuan-Ti have been eating their eggs and tormenting the few Gripply who remain in the village. Captain Meter Hans can transport and drop off the player characters just outside the crab maze that borders the Gripply village before turning back south. With the exception of one Yuan-Ti Malison, the Scaled Mother worshipping Yuan-Ti are composed of Yuan-Ti purebloods. Yuan-Ti purebloods form the lowest caste of their society. They resemble humans despite their scaly patches of skin, serpentine eyes, pointed teeth, and forked tongue. They originally came from the far south, from the jungle lands of Chult. They arrived first to the Gripply village and are looking to bring their deity's temple back to its former glory. They are allies of the Gripply and are benevolent, if not treated harshly. Most survived the Set cult's raid and are now their captives. They are soon to be sacrificed to Set, an evil snake deity. The Set-worshipping Yuan-Ti serpent folk are the villains of the adventure. They are led by a Yuan-Ti abomination. The Set cult also includes a few Yuan-Ti Melisons, while the rest are composed of purebloods. The Yuan-Ti abomination is the only monster that will present a real challenge to a 6th-level party, while the rest of the monsters in the adventure does not. So, the Dungeon Master may wish to toughen up the other encounters in this adventure. Just to repeat myself, the adventure starts in Candlekeep. The Gripply village and the trading post lie northwest of Candlekeep and are located to the west of Cloakwood Forest and on the shores of the Sword Coast. The player characters can travel there either by sea or by land. If the player characters choose the land route, the adventure suggests to pit the party against a few random encounters along the way. The adventure does not provide a map of the trading post. However, from the internet I was able to find one. Here, the party encounters Pond Mother and many of her villagers who managed to flee the Yuan-Ti raid. The trading post is now functioning as a refugee camp. Sounds awfully familiar. Anyway, I do not want to draw parallels with what has happened and what is going on in our own modern age. Various fishes and other seafood that were normally shipped from here to Candlekeep are now being used to feed the refugees. As my suggestion, have Pond Mother provide a Gripply warrior to aid the party. After all, she has a vested interest to free her village from the Set cult. Most of the buildings in the Gripply village is built out of mud bricks with wicker roofs. Just beyond the western shores of the Gripply village and in the sea is the crab maze. This network of cages is where the Gripply have kept, captured, and bred giant crabs for centuries. Hence, the party is likely to be attacked by several giant crabs as they try to run past the maze. Since the Gripply love wet climates, the village is built in a marsh, while a swamp surrounds its outskirts. Several Set-worshipping Yuan-Ti are roaming through the village, but the serpent folk are not particularly vigilant. Hence, the player characters can avoid them if they do not attract attention to themselves, such as making an undue amount of noise, casting fireball or lightning bolt spells, etc. The Pond Mother's home is located in the middle of the village. Imprisoned here are 10 wounded Scaled Mother worshipping Yuan-Ti. They are being guarded by 4 Set cult members. Near the outskirts of the village is the Gripply nursery. These brood pools are filled with clean, fresh water, are where the Gripply lay their eggs and nurture their offspring. Guarding the pools are 6 members of the Set cult. 2 of them are Yuan-Ti Melisons. They permit the remaining Gripply villagers to tend to the eggs. Several eggs are consumed per day by the Set cult. Each Melison guard has a vial of poison. If combat occurs, then on the 3rd round, any remaining Melison will pour poison into the brood pools. To the northeast of the village is the old ruined temple of the Scaled Mother. Digging at the temple is being continued by the Set cult. However, they force Gripply and members of the Scaled Mother to do the digging. 2 Scaled Mother cult members are tied up on the altar and are about to be sacrificed. The Set cult here consists of 2 Yuan-Ti Melisons and 1 abomination, and are currently performing a sacrificial ritual. Once the Yuan-Ti leaders at the temple have been dealt with, the Gripply will waste no time getting the news to the rest of the village and to the trading post. Within 10 days, the refugees return home and have repaired any damage to the crab pens, effectively putting them back in business. Instead of a dungeon crawl, this adventure is more like a theater of the mind adventure. The adventure is combat-free during its beginning and middle parts. Hence, to add excitement, I would have the player characters encounter Yuan-Ti spies within the trading post. How did they get there unnoticed, I hear you ask? Well, I would answer, they used potions of invisibility. If you have any ideas on how to make this adventure even better, please share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. I do like feedback. Till next time, this is RPGmodsFan saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.
Had the chance to run, leave behind the said and done, figure out what's to come. Reasons, all the bigger things I can't ignore. I'm not getting what I came here for. Gotta get ahead of something more. So I think I found a new way out, way beyond the shadow of doubt. 'Cause I can't breathe, and I guess I could be stronger now, and leave it up to fate somehow. But I'm doing this for me. Give it up, baby, you're not fooling anyone. Always going on and on. Can't you keep it to yourself for once? Oh, I think I found a new way out, way beyond your shadow of doubt. And I can't breathe. Oh, I hope you're keeping count of all the times you let me down, and all the things you said out loud, the bullshit I could cry about. And I know we could be stronger now, and leave it up to fate somehow. But everything I do for me. Give it up, baby, you're not fooling anyone. Always going on and on. Can't you keep it to yourself for once? Freedom, I never had the chance to run, leave behind the said and done, figure